You know, in making this video, I tore through dozens of forum posts, rewatched countless episodes, and read so many pages of the manga that my paper cuts have paper cuts, all in a desperate search to find out why I kinda like this anime. So when I finally finished and looked up from my computer, battered and defeated, it only occurred to me that 2 months had passed, and this was all that I had managed to scrape from nearly 300 episodes of content. And I was just left with the feeling that I'll never be getting that time back. So join me, viewers, as we explore an exhaustive list of what makes Boruto sometimes kinda good when it decides to ever get around to the plot and stop sending characters on useless side quests that have no bearing on the story, and then making those side adventures last 50 episodes, but only then to make a singular reference to those specific events way later on in the story, so you feel bad about skipping the filler because maybe it was actually kind of important, and now you feel like a complete and total I swear, I actually like this show. The first thing worthy of praise are the fights, and oh boy do I have a lot to talk about. The people directing these fights deserve all of their awards, just give it to them. Truthfully, it is staggering sometimes that this show can fairly consistently have me at the edge of my seat, my heart beating through my chest in anticipation of what could happen next. The sense of tension driving these encounters, this back and forth between the combatants, is truly a spectacle that really gets my blood flowing. Need an example? Just take a look at the Naruto and Sasuke versus Momoshiki sequence, because holy hell. After my 100th rewatch of this fight, I still have chills. Immediately when the fight begins and the soundtrack kicks up in this hype moment of camaraderie between Naruto and Sasuke, you know that this is going to be something legendary, and they absolutely deliver. The camera work shifting seamlessly between wide shots, panning angles, and POV is exactly what you want from the medium of animation. It helps place us as viewers more intimately in the scene and get a sense for the scale, speed, and emotions of the fight, which is truly an underrated aspect of what makes this feel dynamic and fluid, really accentuating each and every movement of these characters, taking what might be a fairly mundane maneuver and giving it so much more presence and character. In cinematography, there's a sense that the camera can be used as a character in a scene to force the audience into the story and to emphasize the action or emotions of a particular sequence, and this show does this so incredibly well, in such a way that doesn't break the fourth wall or even my immersion. It cannot be stated enough how impressive and engaging this makes each and every scene, and the studio manages to do it so masterfully that I cannot help to praise them for it. It is through the use of these techniques that we are given an opportunity to feel less like disembodied onlookers and more like active participants in the fight, as if we have something to lose from each impact. And this feeling is entirely intentional by the animators, and all due praise should be given. But I'd be hard-pressed to talk about fights in Boruto without discussing perhaps the most impactful aspect, the importance placed on hand-to-hand combat and the use of ninja tools. Taking a look at the Boruto vs. Owl fight, which I intend to make a full breakdown on because this fight in particular is an absolute masterpiece. We follow Boruto through a gripping sequence through the sky, bounding gracefully atop Owl's scientific ninja tools, and what does he do to take them down? Spam Rasengans and large-scale jutsu? No. He uses shuriken and paper bombs, some of the most iconic imagery of the series, and that decision to force the character into using clever tactics to take down a superior opponent is exactly where this show shines. Boruto spends most of the show not following the traditional path of being the chosen one, just a scrappy kid with a lot of expectations on his shoulders, and this character beat is showcased through his fighting style. He's a clever boy who has spent a long time in the shadow of his famous father, so whenever he gets the chance, he tries to show that he's not only just as capable, but also possesses skills that aren't just carbon copies of Naruto's. And that integration of his personality, mixed with stimulating use of strategy, subterfuge, and tactics, make him feel more like a ninja than Naruto ever really did. And to me, that's a really important aspect at the core of this show's identity. Next up, I want to talk about how the show writers turn characters into people. In a lot of forms of media, side characters can often feel like plot devices that only help move the story along for the protagonist. And while Boruto assuredly is guilty of this practice, what it does to humanize these characters, shifting our perception of them as pawns in a greater narrative, to seeing them as real people with dislikes, dreams, and perhaps most importantly, flaws, helps to give importance to each and every action they take, and allowed the villains to impart a real sense of dread when our beloved characters come in contact with them. I care about what happens to some of these characters, and the thought of their lives being snuffed out before they can fulfill their dreams really tugs at my heartstrings. But the masterful characterization isn't always portrayed through such a positive lens. Looking at Ao again, a broken man literally torn apart by war, sought to return to his previous life through any means necessary, even if that meant sacrificing any semblance of morality or sense of self. simply because he couldn't carry on living in this fractured state. Now, his actions are deplorable, sure, and it's easy to say that from our position that we would have done things differently, but I really think in his position, I might have turned over to any power in search for what I had lost. And that's a powerful feeling to impart through a character in a show like this. These adult topics, the consequences of war, and the decisions people make to return to the normality that we all crave, is a serious discussion at the heart of this character, and of course has relevance to events and individuals in our real lives. This hits really hard and really showcases a masterstroke of character writing that this show does surprisingly well. It would have been so easy for them to typecast every character into a familiar stereotype of quirky genius, orphan protagonist, evil guy, comic relief character, or love interest, but the iterations of the characters that the Boruto series has given us that fill these roles are complex and fleshed out people, which of course does a lot of legwork in making a fluid and cohesive story that we, the viewers, care about. What makes this such an important aspect of the series' mission statement is that it even carries the principle to the main character, Boruto. Now, I understand a lot of the hate that this show gets, but what nobody can refute is how beautiful and seamless Boruto's short character arc was. They completely transformed his character from the really annoying centerpiece of this show into what he is now. Contrast this to Naruto in the original series, and his character arc went something along the lines of which really wasn't a character arc in itself. He just set out to do something and accomplished it at some later point down the line. After Naruto graduated from the academy, which was really a handful of episodes into the show, he didn't really change much and was really just used as a vehicle for the plot, which is not wrong at all and proved to make for an extremely memorable and culturally significant piece of media. Naruto is one of my favorite series, but I think it's completely fair to say that most characters were pretty one-dimensional until Shippuden, where we finally had the right context to understand character motivations that opened up our dimensions of perspective about these characters. The most notable examples I can think of are Itachi and Kakashi. What took the Naruto series ages to develop, far into Shippuden, the Boruto series managed to accomplish with this deeply emotional final stroke. Okay, moving away briefly from the deep analysis, I just want to gush over Hanabi for a bit. Wait, just gotta check on one thing. Cut the footage.
Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
Okay. Whew. Can we just appreciate how much Riz this character has? I mean, just look at her. She's absolutely oozing with charisma and charm. They knew exactly what they were doing with her, and goddamn did it work. Hinata stans complain that she's just a boring mom now and is a gigantic wasted opportunity. So what do? Glow up Hanabi and give her a charisma stat that would make every single one of your Baldur's Gate Bard self-inserts look like Doodle Bob SquarePants. What? And on that note, why are we not talking about Ino and Tenten? You can clearly tell who exactly are the favorite characters in this series, and, well, who aren't.
Look how they massacred my boy.
We'll talk more about character designs in the other half of this two-part series. Okay, I'm gonna rip the band-aid off. I think scientific ninja tools just kind of work. And before you go down in the comments and tell me that they're either just plot conveniences or break the logic of the universe, save yourself the time, because you're absolutely right. They are both of those things, but I think the series absolutely needed something to separate itself and its iconography from its far superior predecessor, and this honestly just works for me. They're an infinite resource of tools to pull from every corner of sci-fi to advance the methods and processes that take place in this fantasy world. I mean, who would have ever thought that Naruto's son would wield a lightsaber? I mean, come on. In a million years, you would have never dreamed of that, and it happened, and I think it's absolutely hilarious. To be honest though, by the time these tools became plot relevant around Kawaki's emergence, my brain was on autopilot and I was just eating up everything they threw at me. I made it through the filler. No amount of wildcards could break my immersion. But again, in a momentary stroke of genius, they integrated the ninja tools into Boruto's brief descent and were the catalyst that brought forth his greatest shame as a shinobi and son, and allowed him to grow. It is because of these tools that he values hard work and solidified his shinobi way. And I seriously mean this when I say it, but without that arc laying down the foundation of acceptance of these shinobi tools, I probably would have been handwriting letters to Kishimoto and Kodachi up in arms over ruining my childhood. Finally, I want to talk about cliches. I've sort of mentioned some of these throughout the previous passages, but it's an incredibly important topic when discussing Boruto in contrast to other shonen anime and Naruto. Boruto separates itself from the greater shonen culture by refusing to conform to a singular mold, a tried and true formula, and instead opts to tell a character story through the medium of anime and fantasy. Boruto isn't an orphan, so we don't immediately empathize with him, nor does he have it particularly rough. He's the son of the greatest shinobi in history, and he has the most drop-dead gorgeous aunt in the things I do. And he has a loving family. He isn't just the run-of-the-mill sympathetic character, neither does he follow the never-give-up motto that we see with characters like Luffy from One Piece or Tanjiro from Demon Slayer. And while these traits are completely fine, they often create one-dimensional characters who rely on that trait to move their development forward. This sort of storytelling is really desperately needed from a show following the footsteps of a media and cultural giant like Naruto, to again differentiate itself from the more well-known predecessor. Another cliche that this show refuses to follow is the dysfunctional team trope. Sarada, Mitsuki, and Boruto all play off each other's strengths and weaknesses in such moving and engaging ways, which completely breaks the mold and the expectation of what could have been. Mitsuki is Orochimaru's progeny, so one could be completely justified in believing that he'd be a conniving, underhanded snake. But no, he's a warm, innocent, self-sacrificing character who cares for his friends. He easily could have filled the role of loner type that Sasuke or Sai had in the past, but the Boruto writers refused that and made a new Team 7 that made me want to watch more of them. Every minute they are on screen together, I'm locked in, because they don't just feel like a ragtag group of misfits, they are three flawed individuals with their own problems, but still make every effort to do everything they can to benefit those around them. God, it's such a breath of fresh air, these three. Well done, series. The Boruto series is genuinely a good show at times and makes an effort to tell engaging stories through rich, flawed characters that feel like individual people, and wraps it all up with a bow of amazing musical scores and masterful choreography. Trust me when I tell you, I know it has its faults, but for some reason, I kinda actually like this show. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here. Peace.